What's going on, guys? It is Broomstick here. Hope you guys had a great holiday, made the most of whatever your situation might be. That's all we can do at this point, right? We know that a lot of us, if you're here on this channel, you're probably Gen Z, young man, maybe not Gen Z, but still young, for what it is. But maybe you don't own your own stuff. We know this about average prices of homes, a lot of equity companies like BlackRock and stuff kind of like pricing us out, pricing us into being eternal renters. And it's really kind of like, I feel like, played into how the holidays are at least celebrated or at least, interpreted, especially from my point of view, as a guy in one of those situations. Um, it's really changed a lot of that. And I'm going to go into it in this video. So, um, you know, I no longer have any like college friends or anything that if I am broke or whatever to like enjoy the holiday with. So if anything, holidays like this have really put into kind of perspective of my lifestyle and how much I'm kind of dependent on the public services for my own mental health. So, for example, I'm a big little treat kind of guy. I gotta have my little treat. So for me, a lot of times this comes in the form of something like a slot bowl from Chipotle, because at the very, if I feel like I have to spend money on myself, let me at least get like 1,500 like really good calories of like a balanced meal between protein, fat, and carbs, and just like as non-slop as possible. But let's be honest, it's still like mass-produced slop. But yeah, I go for that. It is tasty. I enjoy it. I slurp it down with the Coca-Cola. But the thing is, on a day like Christmas, you can't do something like that. On a day like Thanksgiving, you can't do something like that. So it really kind of put it into my perspective of like, okay, this kind of like lifestyle, this single male kind of thing I'm doing, maybe this isn't so great. Because, if I'm having to go to for my daily slot bowl and I can't get my slot bowl, and something that's supposed to feel like a holiday, some now is feeling like a day where something's missing. So I gotta make some edits and adjustments on that. I know this year I did buy some food like in advance, but it was crazy. I had I had Panda Express, and I had two McDonald's quarter pounders in the fridge, because I was like, all right, if I can't go out and get food, I'll have some slop food ready to go. And I actually have a slop tier list. If you guys go on my live, I've done a whole tier list on the whole slop fast food industry. Um, but the thing is, man, I ate those like on some big back activity. I ate both my quarter pounders already. I only got a little bit of my Panda chicken left. So yeah, and the other thing too is the gym. I can't go to the gym, and I really just go there for mental health above all else. It just kind of like de-stresses me, I guess. And I can't afford the stuff I'd like to for a home gym. For me, it requires something like a treadmill that can go at least a little bit over 3 miles per hour comfortably, so I can go like a brisk walking pace on. And then I need it to also be a sturdy treadmill I can hold like my laptop and do my work from. And then I also just need weights, and all that shit's expensive. Let's just be honest, guys. It's so much easier. Just my boomer parents already pay for like a community gym on their like insurance or whatever on their plan. So I don't even really got to think about it. But on a day like today, can't go over and do nothing like that. So I don't know. I've kind of been at a loss of like what the holidays actually mean now. My current nuclear family is very small. A lot of grandparents have died off, so it's really just one auntie who lives in the city comes over, and she already lives in the city, so I already see her enough as is. So it's not like anything like special is happening. It's just like I'm gonna hang out with me mom, me dad, like. So I don't know. I just kind of take these days as like reset days. I like I was saying, for like mental health, I got to get out the house. Same thing with like getting work done. If I need to do like heavy, high cognitive load work, applying for jobs or whatever it might be, right? I gotta actually get out of the house and get somewhere like focused outside of the house. Um, it's one thing like if I had my own space and I was able to like create my own office, I guess, and it was impossible of me being bothered by like my mom or my dad, that'd be one thing, but that's just not the reality I guess I live in. And like I was saying, it all goes back to just us not having our own stuff. And because we don't have our own stuff, that's also another reason we're not like economically viable, economically like attractive to a lot of women, or women who want to start families particularly. Maybe if you are lean maxed and you have a good enough face card, you can get some hookups. But I don't really think that. I think it's just things get extraordinarily more difficult when you talk about actually trying to get like a kid out of these women nowadays, who, by and large, do not want kids. They much more enjoy doing things like spending time with pets, or are just planning for like a life without kids on their own because of maybe the overpopulation propaganda. I mean, call it what it is. It kind of has been propagandized. Like, that's really gotten to them. So we're just kind of like at this moment where the holidays aren't what they were, and I feel like just kind of, if you guys are able to like take a breath, just be like, okay, like, it's just a day in life. I don't have to like raise my expectations. I don't have to be Mr. Things have to be picture perfect one way or whatever. And I think for a lot of people, maybe they still have like a great holiday tradition still, and good for them. I definitely remember having a lot larger of a family when more like boomers and older, grandparents were alive in the family. I remember having a lot larger holiday gatherings, and those being fun for what they were in a sense, right? You get a lot of gifts too. That's the other thing. When you're young, literally a kid, you can actually get gifts. And so I don't, if you guys still have something special, I don't want to take away from that, but I just want to put the point that it's like this experience I'm describing of like, you're the guy kind of alone and the holidays don't really feel like special at all. Like, don't, you're not, there's nothing like unusual about you. Don't be, this is just kind of like a new norm in the sense of, because of the affordability and because of social connection just in general becoming more rare. And if you're, outside, you're at this age group, or you're outside, you probably hit twink death, or you're outside of the university age. And this whole, I was talking to this one girl. I hooked up with one girl last year, and I remember like we went out a couple times before the hookup ended up happening. Just wanted to make sure this is like, okay, this is like someone who's actually into me, won't get me in trouble, whatever. That's kind of, the dating thing is more of me vetting her. I feel like at this point, because I'm very distrusting of women and etc. They hold a lot of power to destroy your life. Just call it what it is. And this girl, I remember she said something about like her being in her PhD or whatever, and I said something about like, oh, if I ever went back to school, it'd be for this. And then she was like, oh, well, it's never too late. Ha ha ha, tee hee. The thing is, like, bruh, it is too late. Like, the school experience, like the university experience is really designed for like 18 to 22, 23 year olds. Like, it's, once you're outside of that age group, it's like people just won't want to, I don't, like, you're at twink death, there's nothing like, the other thing too is like you can't tolerate alcohol as well at those ages. At 18 through 22, like you can tolerate alcohol way better and probably actually go out, like have fun and etc. Not have to deal with hangovers as bad. But it's just people just expect other things from you at those early or those later ages, and you probably hit twink death, and it'll just be harder to like really have like a core group of friends. The other thing too is other people who are actually playing the game, I guess, they have their friends from when they were 18 or 22, or their friends from undergrad, their own friend group. So it's like if you're over here playing the game late, you're in university, in your 30s trying to make connections and stuff, it's like it's just not kind of realistic because everyone else has their own setup already. And I don't know, maybe you can, but it just would be so much harder. So yeah, just that cope of just like you can't really start again, you know. But yeah, it's cool, you know. I did get to see my quote unquote group during like that wedding. I did that video about that wedding, and that was nice. But yeah, like I don't really see those guys, so I can't build any kind of dependence on them. I can't, you know. It's just all about making peace with kind of where you're at and kind of like being able to just kind of like make the most of it for what it is. So to tell you guys what I actually honestly did this Christmas, I slept. I got caught up on my sleep. And but the truth is I'll actually be able to like hit the gym early tomorrow, and I'll be able to kind of like get my day started early. And I think honestly like sleeping as heavy as I did probably like fixed my sleep schedule, so I'll be able to actually I'm gonna do the whole thing where it's like, okay, if I slept like, you know, 11 hours just now, I can just pull an all nighter now, and I haven't had any energy drinks, so I can just drink an energy drink if I need it, and I'll actually be able to fall asleep at a good time, like you know, 6 p.m. tonight, 8 p.m. tonight, whatever it might be, kind of like whenever the sun goes down, and kind of reset my circadian. So that was nice about the holiday. You know, there's no expectation, just kind of like lower your expectations and think about it for what it actually is. It's like, okay, maybe this is literally just a day for rest. Like, you know, take it for what it is, man. It's just any other day, man. You know, the sun will go around the earth, and but also at the same time, it's a very special holiday. Christmas is important for the religious and holy reasons, as well as I think it's important to like the kind of like Christian identity this country is founded with, that, you know, we keep the Christ in Christmas. And one last story, I guess, before I close, I really wanted to talk about was I remember, I think, so I told you about this Christmas, right? Where it's like, I know my auntie came over, but I just said hi to her. I slept like the whole time. Um, my last Christmas, I don't think anything was too different. I don't remember last Christmas a ton, so it kind of makes me think that it was kind of like me making the best of what I had here at my parents' house. But I remember the Christmas before that being very unique because I was in Austin, Texas at the time. I worked at a company that used to pay me quite well between overtime and evening hours, but they cut back on those. And that company did a lot of other sus things, like it hired a lot more diversity, and then they put in a lot of pronouns in people's like name tags on their desks and stuff like that. And they're just doing a lot of those kind of moves where it's like, okay, this once startup kind of like nice company is kind of going more in the direction of being zogged out, and I was kind of like really ready to get out of there. As well as the Austin rents actually went up on me another wave. I think the rent now is cheaper in Austin, but I think Austin is also not as like nice as it used to be in like 2021, 2022. I think there was a lot more of like a vibe going on in those years that was kind of like, you know, it was a cool vibe to catch, and I was there at like the tail end of it. But I think the like the golden age of Austin, I think, is definitely over. I don't know what you guys think about that, but there probably is, you know, it's probably better being there than some other places in this country, but it's not like, you know, they were trying to turn it into like the new California there for a little bit, and I don't know, it hit this like unique pocket of like things going on, but I feel like it's been really zogged out. But I think now, like looking back on that time, you know, the rents went up on me, my take home pay went down, and I remember having moved out of my apartment because that January when my rent was up, I was ready to get out of there and stop paying for that place. And I moved everything out except you know, I just had like my gaming setup and then like a mattress on the floor, and that's like how I was living for the last week there. And I just remember going to this like Irish pub to get some wings because you have to go to these niche restaurants if you have to go somewhere on Christmas. So like I know DVDR talked about the Chinese buffet slop and stuff like that. Um, you have to go to these niche restaurants. So I ended up getting some wings at a Irish pub, and I remember it was just so interesting because you go there and you're like just this single guy there, like, hey, you know, I'm waiting on my takeout, And there's people there legit partying, you know, getting drunk, whatever it may be, and you just kind of have to like, I don't know, you know, like I just kind of, you just kind of like take it in, bro. Like, don't, you know, it's not like an attack on your identity or nothing, but it's like they're just living, they're there for a separate reason than you. And you know, I got my wings and I came home, and actually that's when the vibes really started. Like I remember I was in that empty apartment, I had my games, and I was listening to like some Wendigoon conspiracy theories, and I think this is around the time he just started his Cryptid Iceberg. I'm not sure, but I was just eating my wings and like vibing out some good videos, smoking a little weed, and yeah, just kind of like enjoying the day. And I just remember really relishing in that, like, you know, I had my own space, my own peace, and there was like I had nothing really material there, but at the same time I had everything I needed. So yeah, I don't know. That's kind of like how I feel about Christmas and stuff. Is it is a little challenging, kind of like navigating it nowadays, and I think anything more than anything else, like the facilities closing, kind of like hurts me. Of like, oh wait, other people have lives too. Oh, like you know, that kind of like throws me off because you know I kind of unfortunately do depend on other people. It was like, okay, if I want to go to the gym, someone has to staff the gym to let me in, or you know, if I want to, you know, go out and get some Chipotle, well, someone's got to cook the Chipotle and open up the restaurant. So, you know, they're enjoying their Christmas. They're not doing that, and those places are closed. I gotta like go on with my own life. So, hopefully this wasn't too bad or too long, but yeah, this just really been on my mind lately, and I hope I got that out there. And just like I said, if you guys are feeling, you know, anything of what I felt about this whole like malaise behind the holidays, it's like you're not alone, man. Um, there's so many factors at play, bro, between you know the just lifestyle being taken from you under your feet and the destruction of your dollar and the mind fucking of your women. So it's not your fault, dog. Take a chill pill, bro. We'll recover.